The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. It could hold representatives from all 47 species that made up the Peaceful Alliance. The room was shaped like a giant circle, with rows of seats going up like stairs in a theater. Each species had their own section with seats designed for their particular body type. The humans had been part of the council for almost 3 years now. They were one of the newest members, having only discovered faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. Most species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years before that. Ambassador Kyle Harrison walked into the chamber like he did every week. Behind him came Sophie Mitchell, who carried a data tablet and took notes during meetings. 3 other human representatives followed them. They made their way to the human section, which had 10 rows of seats. Kyle walked past the first row. He walked past the second row. He kept walking until he reached the very last row at the top. He sat down in the back corner seat. Sophie sat next to him. The other 3 humans filled in the remaining back row seats. The front 9 rows of the human section sat completely empty. This happened every single meeting. Always the same. Always the back row. Kelthar noticed this pattern. The Vexnar ambassador was a being made of living crystal that reflected light in beautiful colors. Kelthar had been watching the humans for months now, not just in the council chamber, but everywhere. On shared transport ships, humans requested cabins at the rear. In the dining halls, they chose tables near the back walls. During training sessions at the Galactic Academy, human students sat in the last row. Even in casual settings like the recreation lounges, humans positioned themselves in corners and against walls. It was strange. Every other species tried to sit close to the front during important meetings. They wanted to be seen, to be heard, to be part of the action. But not humans. Humans always stayed back. Today, Kelthar decided to ask about it. The council meeting was discussing trade routes through the Andromeda sector. It was boring technical stuff. Most ambassadors looked half asleep. Kelthar saw the perfect moment to satisfy this curiosity. "Ambassador Harrison," Kelthar's voice rang out like a bell. The crystal being's voice had a musical quality that came through in multiple tones at once. "I have a question, if you do not mind." The chamber fell silent. 47 species turned to look. Some had eyes, some had sensors, some had ways of seeing that humans could not even understand. All of them focused on the human section at the back. Kyle Harrison smiled. It was a friendly smile, but something about it made a few species feel uncomfortable. Humans showed their teeth when they smiled, which reminded some aliens of predators. "Of course, Ambassador Kelthar. What would you like to know?" "Why do your people always sit in the back? I have observed this pattern everywhere. In this chamber, you leave the front rows empty. On transport vessels, you choose rear compartments. Even in relaxation areas, you position yourselves at the back. Why is this?" Kelthar's crystal body pulsed with different colors as it spoke, showing genuine curiosity. "Surely, as one of the newer members, you would want to be closer to the proceedings? Closer to the center of things?" Kyle looked at Sophie. She looked back at him. Something passed between them, some silent communication. Then Kyle turned back to face the chamber. "It is just more comfortable for us, Ambassador. Old habit, you could say." "But habit from where?" Kelthar pressed forward with more questions. "Your species has only been traveling in space for 200 years. That is not very long. How can you have such strong habits already?" Kyle's smile never changed. "We humans just prefer to watch things happen. We get a better view of the whole room from the back. We can see everything from here." The answer seemed to satisfy most of the representatives. They nodded, or made their species equivalent of nodding. The meeting continued with discussions about fuel costs and shipping schedules. But Kelthar was not satisfied. The answer felt incomplete. There was something more to this, something the humans were not saying. Over the next few weeks, Kelthar watched even more carefully. The Crystal Ambassador started paying attention to every human behavior. On human ships, the captain and crew sat at the back of the bridge, not the front. In human restaurants, families always asked for tables where they could put their backs to a wall. In exercise facilities, humans positioned their workout equipment so they faced the door. It was not just about sitting in the back. It was about something deeper. Humans always positioned themselves so they could see everything around them. They always kept their backs protected. They always knew where the exits were. Kelthar brought these observations to other ambassadors, the crystal being called a private meeting with representatives from several species. They met in a small conference room away from the main chamber. "I tell you, something is wrong," Kelthar said to the group. "The humans are hiding something. This behavior is not normal." The Krell representative was there. The Krell looked like giant insects with multiple eye stalks. All the eye stalks waved in agitation. "Perhaps they are planning something. This positioning could be tactical, military." "Or they are afraid," suggested the Forian delegate. The Forians were beings of gas and energy contained in special environmental suits. Maybe they fear attack from someone. But from who? Kelthar's crystal body changed to a darker blue, showing confusion. "We are at peace. The galaxy has been peaceful for 200 years. The humans have been nothing but helpful and cooperative. Why would they fear attack?" The Zenthari commander leaned forward. The Zenthari were large and powerful, a warrior species that valued honor and strength. "Then we should ask them directly, file a formal inquiry, make them explain. If they refuse to answer, then we will know they are hiding something important." The group agreed. A formal request was prepared and sent to Earth's government. The message was simple and direct. The Galactic Council wanted to know the truth. Why do humans always sit at the back? What is the real reason? Earth's government received the message. For 3 days, there was silence. No response came. The council representatives started to worry. Had they offended the humans? Were the humans angry about being questioned? Then, on the 4th day, a response arrived. It was short, just one sentence. "We will answer your question in person. Send a delegation to Earth." The message surprised everyone. Humans were inviting council members to their home world. This was unusual. Most species preferred to keep their home planets private, showing only what they wanted outsiders to see. Kelthar felt both excited and nervous. The Crystal Ambassador had started this investigation. Now it would lead to Earth itself. 12 species agreed to go. Kelthar would lead them. The Krell representative would come. The Forian delegate agreed to travel. The Zenthari commander insisted on being part of the group. They would visit Earth. They would get their answer. But as the delegation prepared for the journey, none of them realized what they were about to learn. They thought they were asking a simple question about seating preferences. They had no idea they were about to discover something fundamental about human nature. Something that would change how the entire galaxy, though. The delegation landed at a spaceport near Geneva. The city sat in a valley surrounded by massive mountains covered in snow. The aliens found the landscape beautiful, but also intimidating. Mountains that large could cause weather problems and geological instability. Director Greg Palmer met them at the landing pad. He was a tall human with gray hair and a warm smile. Next to him stood Dr. Lisa Chang, a shorter woman with dark hair pulled back in a simple style. She carried a data tablet and wore glasses, even though humans had the technology to fix vision problems permanently. "Welcome to Earth," Greg said as he shook hands with each delegate. The gesture was strange to some species, but they had learned it was a human sign of respect. "Thank you for making the long journey. We know you have questions." "Many questions," Kelthar said, the crystal body reflecting the sunlight in rainbow patterns. "We appreciate your willingness to answer them." They were taken to a conference room in a simple building. The room was nothing like the grand council chamber. It had basic chairs, a large table, and one wall made entirely of glass that looked out at the mountains. The furniture was arranged in a circle, not in rows, but even here the humans had positioned themselves carefully. Greg and Lisa sat with their backs to the solid wall. They could see the door and the window. They could see everyone in the room. "Please, sit anywhere you are comfortable," Lisa said, gesturing to the chairs. The delegates sat down, choosing seats based on their species' needs. The Zenthari commander picked a reinforced chair that could hold his massive frame. The Forian's environmental suit hovered above a seat. Kelthar simply stood, as sitting was not something crystal beings did. "You want to know why we sit in the back?" Greg began without any small talk. "The answer is not simple. It is not about one thing. It is about who we are and where we come from." Lisa activated a holographic projector in the center of the table. An image appeared, showing Earth from space. The blue oceans, green and brown land, white clouds swirling in patterns. "Your world is beautiful," the Forian delegate said, their voice coming through speakers in the environmental suit. "Thank you," Lisa replied. "But beautiful does not mean safe. Earth is classified as a Class 9 death world in your planetary danger system. But even that rating does not tell the whole story." The image changed. Now it showed a wide grassland with tall yellow grass. Animals grazed in herds. But hidden in the grass was a large cat with sharp teeth and claws. The predator was perfectly camouflaged. "For millions of years, our ancestors lived on this planet," Greg continued. "They were not the strongest animals. They were not the fastest. They did not have sharp claws or teeth or poison or armor. They were just smart apes trying to survive." More images appeared. A bear larger than any Zenthari. A snake that could kill with a single bite. A tiny insect that carried diseases. A storm that could destroy entire forests. A wave of water taller than buildings. "Everything on Earth tried to kill us," Lisa said quietly. "The predators hunted us. The weather killed us. Diseases spread through our tribes. Other human species competed with us for food and territory. Even the plants were often poisonous." The Krell representatives' eye stalks all focused on one image showing early humans huddled in a cave. "How did you survive if you were so weak?" "By being afraid," Greg answered. "By never feeling safe. By always assuming danger was nearby. By watching our backs every single moment of every single day for 3 million years." Lisa pulled up new images. These were old paintings from ancient human caves. In every picture, the humans were drawn facing outward. They held crude weapons. Their backs were always against the cave wall. Their eyes looked out toward the darkness. "Our ancestors who survived were the paranoid ones," Lisa explained. "The ones who did not trust the shadows. The ones who slept with their backs protected. The ones who always watched for danger. The humans who were trusting, who felt safe, who relaxed their guard, they died. They were killed by predators or enemies or accidents." She changed the image to show human DNA, the twisted ladder shape that carried genetic information. "Over millions of years, this behavior became part of our biology. The nervous ones survived and had children. The relaxed ones died. Generation after generation, we became a species that could never fully relax, that always watched for threats, that always positioned ourselves defensively." Kelthar's crystal structure vibrated, creating a humming sound. "You mean this is in your genes? You cannot help it?" "Partially," Greg confirmed, "but it is also cultural. Every human society, everywhere on Earth, taught the same lessons. Watch your back. Know where the exits are. Do not sit where you cannot see danger coming. Parents teach this to children. Schools teach it to students. It becomes automatic." The Zenthari commander shifted in his seat. His warrior training made him understand tactics and positioning. But surely in your modern times, in your safe cities, this is no longer needed? Lisa smiled sadly. She pulled up statistics on the hologram. Last year, violent crime in human cities was at the lowest rate in our recorded history. We live in the safest period humanity has ever known. Our cities are protected, our homes are secure, our children are watched and guarded. She paused and looked around the room. And yet, every single human in this building today chose their seat carefully when they sat down. Greg positioned himself against the wall. I did the same. Every human who works here, every visitor, every child in our schools, they all do it. Every time, everywhere. A new image appeared. It showed a classroom of young human children, maybe 6 or 7 years old. The small desks were arranged in rows, but every single child had turned their desk slightly. Every desk faced the door. Every child could see anyone entering the room. We teach them when they are young, Greg said, his voice carrying a note of something like sadness. Not because we want to frighten them, not because we expect danger, but because somewhere deep in our minds, in the oldest parts of our brains, we remember what happens when you forget to watch your back. The room fell silent. The delegates absorbed this information. It was not what they expected. They thought they would learn about a cultural practice or a religious belief. Instead, they learned about trauma carried through millions of years of evolution. The Krell representative spoke first. This seems like a terrible way to live, to never feel truly safe, to always be watching for threats that do not exist anymore. It is, Lisa agreed honestly. Humans have higher rates of anxiety and stress disorders than any known species. We invented entire branches of medicine just to help people manage fear and worry. We have therapies, medications, meditation practices, all designed to help us cope with our own nervous systems. But we also invented other things, Greg added. We created art to express our fears, music to calm our nerves, stories to make sense of danger, philosophy to understand our place in a dangerous universe. We found ways to live with our paranoia instead of being destroyed by it. A new person entered the room. She was a woman in a dark blue uniform with insignia that marked her as military. Her name was Captain Amanda Price, and she moved with controlled precision. I apologize for interrupting, Amanda said, but I think I can help explain this better with a demonstration rather than words. The Zenthari commander leaned forward with interest. What kind of demonstration? Your species are warriors, Amanda said, looking directly at the Zenthari. You understand combat and tactics. Let me show you what happens when humans face danger. Let me show you why being paranoid has value. Within an hour, the entire delegation was transported to a military training facility in the mountains outside Geneva. The building was large and utilitarian, designed for function rather than beauty. Inside was a mock urban environment, a practice area for training soldiers. We run this exercise with many different species, Amanda explained as they stood in an observation room above the training floor. The scenario is simple. A team must enter a building where hostile forces might be hiding. They must clear each room and neutralize any threats. Standard military procedure. She gestured to the Zenthari commander. Would you like your warriors to try first? The commander's eyes gleamed with competitive interest. Yes. We will show you how Zenthari clear buildings. 4 Zenthari warriors entered the practice building. They were impressive, moving with strength and confidence. Their large bodies were muscled and powerful. They carried practice weapons that would register hits without causing real injury. The observers watched through cameras as the Zenthari moved through the building. They were fast and aggressive, trusting their strength and armor. When they encountered practice enemies, they attacked with overwhelming force. But within 5 minutes, the simulation ended. Red lights flashed over 3 of the 4 Zenthari. They had been killed by hidden threats they had not noticed. Concealed practice enemies had shot them from hiding spots. The Zenthari commander growled low in his throat. Again, We were overconfident. The second attempt went better. The warriors moved more carefully. The Krell representatives' eye stalks drooped down, showing confusion and concern. But this is a military exercise. Combat situations. Surely in normal, peaceful life, you do not behave this way. Greg Palmer pulled out his personal data tablet. He displayed information for everyone to see. Let me show you something interesting. Humans have been part of galactic trade for 30 years now. In that time, there have been 47 major incidents involving merchant ships, pirate attacks, equipment failures, navigation problems, space anomalies, things like that. He brought up statistics that floated in the air as holograms. Numbers and charts showed data from different species. Xanthari merchant vessels in these incidents had a 15% casualty rate, crew members who died or were seriously injured. Forian vessels had 22% casualties. Krell vessels had 18%. These are not bad numbers. Your species build good ships and train good crews. Greg paused and highlighted a different section. Human vessels in the same incidents had a 3% casualty rate. The Xanthari commander stood up from his reinforced chair. His massive frame towered over the humans. How is this possible? Your ships are not more advanced. Your weapons are not superior. How do your crews survive better? Because we expect things to go wrong, Lisa said simply. Human merchant ships carry 3 times the normal amount of backup systems. If one system fails, we have 2 more ready. If those fail, we have manual overrides. If those fail, we have emergency protocols. Amanda added more details. Our crews train constantly for disasters, fire drills, hull breach drills, pirate attack drills, power failure drills. We practice every possible emergency until the responses become automatic. Our captains are required to have escape plans for dozens of different scenarios. It takes our ships twice as long to prepare for departure, Greg continued. We check every system 3 times before we launch. We verify cargo loading procedures. We inspect safety equipment. Other species find this excessive. They think we waste time. Until something goes wrong, Lisa finished. And then our paranoia saves lives. The delegation sat in silence, processing this information. What they had thought was a strange quirk about seating preferences was actually something much deeper. It was a survival strategy built into human nature over millions of years. Kelthar's crystal body shifted through different colors, showing the being's emotional processing. When we first asked why you sit in the back, we thought it would be a simple answer. A cultural preference, perhaps. We did not expect to learn about 3 million years of evolution on a death world. We did not expect you to ask, Kyle Harrison said. The ambassador had been quiet during most of the presentation, but now he spoke up. Most species notice our behaviors but do not question them. They think humans are just strange or overly cautious. But you wanted us to understand, the Xanthari commander said slowly. That is why you invited us here. You could have given us a simple answer and sent us away. Instead, you showed us your history, your world, your way of thinking. Why? Sophie Mitchell spoke for the first time since arriving at the facility. Because understanding matters. The galaxy is mostly peaceful now, but that will not last forever. Threats will come. Maybe external enemies, maybe internal problems, maybe natural disasters. When those threats arrive, the species that survive will be the ones who were prepared. You are trying to warn us, Kelthar said, the crystal structure resonating with realization. Not warn, Greg corrected. Teach. Share. You asked us an honest question. We gave you an honest answer. What you do with that answer is up to you. The Forian delegate's environmental suit floated closer to the observation window. Below, human soldiers were running another training exercise. Your species has suffered greatly to gain this knowledge. These instincts cost you peace of mind. They cost you the ability to fully relax. That seems like a high price. It is, Lisa agreed. But the alternative is extinction. On Earth, hundreds of human species evolved. Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo erectus, many others. They were all intelligent. They all made tools. They all had language and culture. But only we survived. Only Homo sapiens made it. And we made it because we were the most paranoid, the most careful, the most prepared for disaster. She pulled up images of ancient human skeletons in a museum. Every one of these species died out. We have their bones, their tools, their art. But they are gone. We are here. And the difference between survival and extinction was often just being a little more afraid, a little more prepared, a little more aware of danger. The delegates from the Galactic Council looked at each other. They had come to Earth expecting to satisfy simple curiosity. Instead, they received an education about survival that challenged their assumptions about safety and peace. The Zenthari commander approached Greg Palmer. The huge warrior looked down at the human, who was half his size. Director Palmer, I have fought in many battles. I understand tactics and strategy, but I never thought about the mental cost of constant vigilance. How do your people stay sane? Greg smiled. Therapy helps. So does humor. Humans joke about our anxiety. We make fun of our paranoia. We tell stories about our fears and laugh at them. It does not make the fear go away, but it makes it bearable. We also find purpose in it, Amanda added. Our caution protects not just ourselves, but the people we care about. A human parent checking the doors and windows before bed is not just being paranoid. They are protecting their children. That gives the behavior meaning. And sometimes, Sophie said quietly, we find peace in small moments. A safe place, a trusted friend, a quiet evening. We cannot be vigilant all the time. We have to rest. So we create spaces where we can lower our guard, at least a little. Lisa brought up one final image. It showed a human family in their home. The parents sat on a couch with two children. They were watching something on a screen, relaxed and happy. But even in this peaceful scene, the couch was positioned against a wall. The parents could see all the doors and windows. Even at rest, even at home, even in their safest place, humans maintained awareness. This is who we are, Lisa said. We cannot change it. We do not want to change it because it keeps us alive. But we have learned to live with it, to find joy and love and peace despite our fear. The Krell representative's eye stalks moved in patterns that showed deep thought. I begin to understand why you always sit in the back of the council chamber. You are not being antisocial or disrespectful. You are simply being human. Exactly, Kyle confirmed. From the back row, we can see everyone. We can watch all the entrances. We have clear paths to the exits. It is not that we expect attack in the council chamber. We do not. But we check anyway. Because that is what kept our ancestors alive. Kelthar moved closer to the observation window, watching the human soldiers train below. We regretted asking this question at first. When we learned the answer, it seemed sad. That you could never fully trust, never fully relax, never feel completely safe. It seemed like a curse. It is a curse, Greg agreed. But it is also a gift. Because when real danger comes, we are ready. When others panic, we have protocols. When others freeze, we have training. When others hope for the best, we have planned for the worst. Your death world made you this way, the Zenthari commander said. Earth shaped you like a blade is shaped by a whetstone, through violence and death and constant danger. Yes, Lisa said simply, but we also shaped ourselves. Humans made choices. We chose to work together despite our fear. We chose to share knowledge instead of hoarding it. We chose to build civilizations even though it made us easier targets for predators. We took our paranoia and weaponized it for survival. Amanda gestured to the training floor. Every technique you saw today, Every protocol, every safety measure, it all came from humans who died. Someone failed to check a corner and got killed, so we made a rule to always check corners. Someone trusted a safe-looking situation and died, so we made a rule to never trust appearances. Our procedures are written in blood. That is a grim way to learn, the Forian said. But effective, the Zenthari commander countered. Warriors understand this. Every battle teaches lessons. The survivors carry those lessons forward. Sophie looked at the assembled delegates. We know our behavior seems strange to you. Excessive, paranoid. But this is 3 million years of evolution talking. This is the wisdom bought with the lives of billions of humans who did not survive. We cannot ignore it. We should not ignore it. Greg shut down the holographic displays. The training exercise below was ending. We invited you here to answer your question honestly. Yes, we always sit in the back. Yes, we position ourselves defensively. Yes, we check for threats even when we know we are safe. This is what humans do. This is who we are. 2 months passed after the delegation returned from Earth. They submitted their report to the Galactic Council. Some species found the human behavior understandable. Others thought it was excessive. Most simply filed the information away and continued with their normal routines. Then everything changed. The first attack came without warning. A species called the Void Ravagers struck a small agricultural colony on the edge of Council space. They destroyed the orbital stations, killed thousands of civilians, and disappeared before defense forces could respond. 3 days later, they hit another world, then another. All 3 attacks followed the same pattern: strike fast, cause maximum damage, and vanish before help arrived. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. For the first time in 200 years, they faced a real military threat. The council chamber filled with representatives from every species. Military commanders joined the diplomats. Security chiefs stood beside ambassadors. The room buzzed with worried conversation. Species that had not thought about war in generations now faced the reality of coordinated attacks. The peaceful galaxy they had known was ending. Kyle Harrison entered the chamber with the human delegation. As always, they walked past the front rows. As always, they climbed to the very back. As always, they sat in the last row with their backs to the wall and their eyes on the room. But today was different. Today, other species were watching where the humans sat. Today, they wondered what the humans saw from back there. Admiral Kyle Morrison commanded Earth's contribution to the defense fleet. He was Kyle Harrison's cousin, though they looked nothing alike. The admiral was shorter, stockier, built like a fighter. His tactical officer, Commander Danny Brooks, sat beside him with a data tablet ready. The Zenthari fleet commander, Koryax, stood at the central podium. The massive warrior's voice filled the chamber. The Void Ravagers use cowardly hit-and-run tactics. They strike without honor and flee before we can engage them in proper battle. We must locate their base, added the Forian admiral, their voice coming through environmental suit speakers. But they leave no trail. We cannot track their ships after they jump away. The chamber erupted with debate. Every species offered opinions. Some wanted aggressive pursuit. Others suggested defensive fortifications. The Krell proposed technological solutions to track the enemy ships. The debates grew heated as fear and frustration mixed together. Kyle Morrison sat quietly in the back row. He listened to everything. His eyes moved across the chamber, watching who spoke, noting who stayed silent, observing the patterns of discussion. Danny leaned over and whispered something. Kyle nodded but said nothing. Kelthar noticed the silent humans. The Crystal Ambassador remembered the visit to Earth, the lessons about watching from the back, about seeing the whole room. Admiral Morrison, Kelthar's voice cut through the debate. You have been silent. What does Earth's fleet command think about this situation? The chamber went quiet. All eyes turned to the back row where the humans sat. Kyle stood slowly. He did not rush. He gathered a data tablet from Danny and walked down to the central holographic display. His steps were measured, calm. He showed no fear or urgency. "May I use the tactical display?" Kyle asked. Korax gestured permission. The hologram activated, showing a map of Council space with the 3 attack locations marked in red. Kyle studied the map for a long moment. Then he spoke. "They are herding you." "What?" Korax's voice rumbled with confusion. "Explain this immediately." "The attacks are not random," Kyle said calmly. He highlighted the 3 worlds. "Look at the pattern. Each attack pulls Council defense forces to that sector. Each time you respond to an attack, you move ships away from somewhere else. The Void Ravagers are not trying to conquer these worlds. These targets are too small, too unimportant strategically." Danny joined him at the display, bringing up additional data. "If the pattern continues, basic tactical analysis suggests the next attacks will likely be here, here, or here." 3 more sectors lit up in yellow warning colors. "And when you move ships to defend those positions," Kyle pointed to a cluster of core worlds in the center of the map. These were the most important planets in Council space, centers of government, industry, population. "These become undefended. That is when they will strike the real targets, probably all at once, overwhelming your scattered forces." The chamber fell into shocked silence. A Krell strategist stood up, eye stalks waving in agitation. "You assume malice where there may be only random chaos. How can you know they plan this?" "Because it is what we would do," Kyle said bluntly. His voice carried no shame or hesitation. "If I were attacking a superior force, I would use deception. I would make them respond to false threats. Get them looking in the wrong direction. Then hit them where they are weakest. This assumes they can predict our responses perfectly," the Forian admiral objected. "That seems impossible." "Not perfectly," Danny corrected. "Just well enough. They are counting on you being reactive instead of proactive. They expect you to respond to immediate threats instead of seeing the larger pattern. They think you will focus on the fires in front of you and miss the trap being set." Kelthar's crystal body pulsed with sudden understanding. The ambassador's voice rang out like bells. "Because you sit in the back, you see the whole room. While we focus on the immediate attacks, you watch the entire board." "Exactly," Kyle confirmed. "Everyone is focused on the attacks that already happened. The destroyed colonies, the casualties, the need for immediate response. But from the back, looking at everything, the pattern becomes clear. This is not about those colonies. This is a setup for something bigger." Korax slammed a massive fist on the podium. The sound echoed through the chamber. "If you are correct, human, then what do you suggest we do?" Kyle's expression changed. That predator smile appeared, the one that made some species uncomfortable. "We let them think their plan is working. We move ships to defend the obvious next targets just like they expect. But we keep our fastest strike forces here, here, and here." He marked positions near the core worlds. "Hidden, powered down so they do not show on sensors. Waiting. And when the Void Ravagers arrive expecting easy targets, thinking all our forces are scattered." "We spring the trap," Korax finished. A gleam of appreciation appeared in the warrior's eyes. "Turn their own strategy against them." "Exactly," Kyle agreed. The Zenthari commander looked at the human admiral with new respect. "This is why you always watch from the back. You are not participating in the immediate action. You are watching for the larger threat." "It is what kept our ancestors alive," Kyle said. "The humans who watched only what was directly in front of them got eaten by predators coming from the sides. The ones who focused only on the immediate threat missed the bigger danger. We learned to always watch everything, always look for patterns, always assume there is more going on than we can see." The plan was implemented. Council forces moved to defend the predicted targets, making a visible show of repositioning. But hidden among the core worlds, strike forces waited in silence. Human ships worked with Zenthari warriors, Forian scouts, and Krell technical specialists. 3 days passed, then 4. Tension built across the Council territories. On the 5th day, the Void Ravagers attacked exactly as Kyle had predicted. 4 core worlds hit simultaneously. The enemy fleet was massive, clearly meant to overwhelm minimal defenses and cause catastrophic damage. But they found no minimal defenses. Instead, combined fleet task forces emerged from hiding. Human ships coordinated with alien vessels in a carefully planned ambush. The Void Ravagers, expecting easy victories, found themselves trapped and outnumbered. The battle was fierce. Ships were lost on both sides, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Void Ravager fleet was shattered. Their survivors fled in disorder. And when Council forces tracked them back to their hidden base, it was destroyed completely. 1 week later, the Galactic Council gathered again. The chamber was full, but the atmosphere was completely different. Relief mixed with gratitude. Fear was replaced by confidence. But something else had changed, too. As the session began, representatives from every species filed into the chamber, and instead of rushing to the front rows, they moved backward. The Zenthari delegation took seats 3 rows from the back. The Forians positioned themselves near the rear wall. Even the Krell, who traditionally sat in the front center, moved back several rows. When everyone was seated, the front half of the chamber stood empty. Every delegation had moved backward, leaving the front rows vacant. Kelthar noticed it first. The Crystal Ambassador's body flashed through colors showing amusement. "It appears," Kelthar announced to the chamber, "that we have all developed a preference for the back rows." Laughter rippled through the room. Different species made different sounds, but the emotion was universal. They had learned something from the humans. They had learned the value of watching from the back. Kyle Harrison smiled from his seat in the very last row. Sophie sat beside him, trying not to laugh. "We should thank the humans," Korax rumbled from his new position 5 rows back. "Their paranoia saved the Council." "Our what now?" Kyle called back with mock offense. "Your careful observation skills," the Zenthari corrected with what might have been humor. "Your tendency toward thorough threat assessment." "That is better," Kyle agreed. The session began, but everyone knew something fundamental had shifted. The galaxy had been peaceful for so long that they forgot what danger looked like. They forgot the value of caution. 10 years passed since the Void Ravager War ended. The galaxy settled back into peace, but it was a different kind of peace now. Species that had forgotten about danger remembered the lessons they learned. The Galactic Council decided to hold their annual summit on Earth. It was an honor that rotated between member worlds, and this year humanity got to host. Delegates from all 47 species would gather in Geneva to discuss trade, security, and the future of their alliance. Sophie Mitchell stood in the newly built Earth Conference Center, watching workers make final preparations. She was no longer a junior diplomatic attaché. Now she held the rank of senior ambassador, representing Earth's interests across the galaxy. "Everything ready?" asked Chris Webber, a young diplomat who reminded Sophie of herself 10 years ago. Eager, smart, maybe a little naive about how complicated galactic politics could be. "Almost," Sophie replied. "The Zenthari need reinforced chairs. The Forians need their environmental controls checked. The Krell want to make sure the lighting does not hurt their eyes. Standard stuff." Chris looked at the seating arrangement in the main hall. The room was designed like an amphitheater, with curved rows going up toward the back. But unlike traditional amphitheaters, these rows were arranged so everyone had clear sight lines to all exits. The back wall was solid, giving those in the rear rows protected positions. "Did we design this room to be defensible?" Chris asked, noticing the layout. Sophie smiled. "Yes. After the war, every new council building follows similar principles. Clear exits, defendable positions, no blind corners. The other species asked us to consult on the designs. Because of what happened with the Void Ravagers? Because they learned that human paranoia has value, Sophie corrected. They saw how our defensive thinking saved lives. Now they want to learn from it. The summit began the next day. Delegates arrived from across the galaxy, their ships landing at the spaceport in waves. The opening ceremony was brief and formal. Then the real work began. Sophie watched as the delegates filed into the conference hall, and she noticed something remarkable. Every single delegation moved toward the back rows. The Zenthari, who once proudly sat in the front center, now positioned themselves 4 rows from the back. The Forians, who used to hover near the podium, stayed near the rear wall. The Krell, the Vexnar, even species that had never shown any interest in defensive positioning before, all chose seats that gave them clear views of the whole room. The front third of the hall sat completely empty. Kelthar noticed Sophie watching. The Crystal Ambassador approached her, body shimmering with colors that indicated friendly greeting. Amusing, is it not? We asked why humans sit in the back, and now we all do it. I noticed, Sophie said. What changed? We learned, Kelthar replied simply. Not just about positioning, but about awareness, about watching for threats before they become emergencies. The Void Ravagers taught us that peace is fragile. Your people taught us how to prepare for when peace breaks. Over the next 3 days, the summit covered many topics. Trade agreements were negotiated, scientific cooperation was expanded, new members applied to join the council. But running through all the discussions was a common thread. Humans had influenced galactic culture in ways that went beyond politics or technology. On the 3rd day, Corax gave a presentation about military readiness. The old Zenthari warrior had become the Council's chief military advisor after the war. He stood at the podium, his massive frame still imposing despite his age. 10 years ago, the Council Defense Forces were unprepared for real conflict, Corax began. We had forgotten what war looked like. We assumed peace would last forever. We were wrong. And that mistake cost lives. He brought up casualty statistics from the Void Ravager attacks. The numbers were grim. Since then, we have implemented new protocols, training programs, emergency procedures, and our casualty rates in incidents have dropped by 40%. Corax gestured to the human delegation in the back rows. We learned these protocols from the humans, their triple redundant systems, their constant drilling, their assumption that anything can go wrong at any time. At first, many species complained that these measures were excessive, paranoid. The warrior paused. They were paranoid, but paranoia keeps you alive. He displayed new statistics. Merchant vessel survival rates are up across all species. Emergency response times are faster. Civilian evacuation procedures are more efficient. All because we started thinking like humans, always watching, always prepared, always ready for disaster. The chamber was silent as delegates absorbed this information. I fought the Void Ravagers, Corax continued. I saw how the humans positioned their forces, how they anticipated threats, how they planned for every contingency. At first I thought it was just good tactics, but it was more than that. It was a way of thinking that comes from living on a world that constantly tried to kill them. He looked directly at Sophie. Ambassador Mitchell, your species has given the galaxy a gift. Not technology or weapons, but a mindset. The knowledge that safety is temporary and preparation is permanent. We are grateful. Sophie stood to respond, feeling the weight of all those eyes on her. Commander Corax honors us. But we do not see our caution as a gift. We see it as a burden we carry because we have no choice. 3 million years of evolution made us this way. She walked down to join Corax at the podium. Every human in this room right now knows where the exits are. We have already identified the fastest escape routes. We have noted which delegates are closest to us. who might be threats or allies in an emergency. We do this automatically without thinking. And it exhausts us, Sophie continued. Human rates of anxiety disorders are still higher than any known species. We struggle with stress, with fear, with the inability to fully relax. We have learned to manage it, but we cannot eliminate it. She paused, looking around the room. So when you adopt our protocols, our defensive thinking, our constant vigilance, please remember it comes at a cost. We pay that cost every day. If you choose to learn from us, understand what you are taking on. A Forian delegate spoke up, voice synthesized through their environmental suit. But is the cost not worth the benefit? Better to be anxious and alive than relaxed and dead. Perhaps, Sophie agreed, but there should be balance. Learn to watch for threats, yes. Prepare for emergencies, absolutely. But do not let fear consume your lives the way it sometimes consumes ours. Chris Webber stood in the back row, watching Sophie speak. He leaned over to Kyle Harrison, who sat beside him. Do you really check for exits everywhere you go? Every single place, Kyle confirmed. Right now I know there are 4 exits from this hall. I know which one is closest to our delegation. I know which one is least likely to be blocked in an emergency. I calculated this within 30 seconds of entering the room. Does it ever stop? Chris asked. No, Kyle said honestly. But you learn to live with it. You find moments of peace, people you trust, places where you can lower your guard a little. Not completely, never completely, but enough to rest. The summit continued. Discussions ranged across dozens of topics. But again and again, the conversation returned to lessons learned from humanity. Not just military tactics, but approaches to safety, risk management, disaster preparation. A Krell scientist presented new research on backup systems for life support. A Vexnar engineer discussed redundancy in power generation. A Zenthari psychologist talked about training personnel to stay calm during emergencies. All of them credited human influence. On the final day of the summit, Kelthar requested permission to address the full assembly. The crystal being stood at the podium, body cycling through colors that indicated deep emotion. 10 years ago, I asked a simple question, Kelthar began. Why do humans always sit at the back? I expected a simple answer. Instead, I learned about evolution on a death world, about 3 million years of fighting to survive, about instincts so deep they cannot be removed from human biology. The crystal ambassador's voice resonated through the chamber. I regretted asking that question. The answer was uncomfortable. It revealed that our newest members could never fully trust us, never fully relax in our presence. It seemed sad. But I was wrong to regret it, Kelthar continued. That question led to understanding. Understanding led to respect. Respect led to learning. And learning saved the council when the Void Ravagers attacked. Kelthar turned to face the human delegation. Humans sit in the back because they are always watching, always alert, always prepared for threats we cannot see. For millions of years, this kept them alive. Now it keeps all of us alive. The question is not why humans sit in the back, the ambassador declared. The question is why the rest of us ever sat anywhere else. The chamber erupted in applause. Different species made different sounds, clicks and hums and rumbles and chimes, but the meaning was universal. Agreement, appreciation, understanding. Sophie felt tears in her eyes. For 10 years, humans had worried that their paranoia would make them outsiders in galactic society. Instead, it had made them teachers. The burden they carried had become valuable knowledge they could share. After the session ended, delegates mingled in the reception hall. Species that rarely spoke to each other found common ground discussing emergency protocols. Warriors traded tactical insights with scientists. Diplomats and engineers compared notes on safety systems. Kyle found Sophie standing by a window, looking out at the mountains. You okay? He asked. Just thinking, she replied. When I was young, I wished we could be like the other species, trusting, relaxed, not always looking over our shoulders. And now? Now I understand why we are the way we are, Sophie said. And I am proud of it. Our ancestors paid a terrible price to give us these instincts. Billions of humans died so we could learn to watch our backs. We honor their sacrifice by staying vigilant. Kyle nodded. And by teaching others, so their people do not have to learn these lessons the hard way. They stood together in comfortable silence, two humans doing what humans always do, watching the room, noting the exits, aware of who was nearby and who was approaching, never fully relaxed but at peace with their nature. Chris joined them, carrying data tablets. The Zenthari want to set up a joint training program. The Krell are requesting human advisors for their emergency response teams. The Forians want to redesign their ships with our redundancy protocols. Sounds like we are going to be busy, Sophie said. It is good work, though, Kyle added. Important work. Across the galaxy, changes continued to spread. New buildings incorporated defensive design. Merchant ships added backup systems. Military forces trained with human tactical advisors. Civilian populations learned evacuation procedures. And everywhere, in every council facility, delegates chose seats where they could see the whole room. Some species forgot the lessons over time. Peace made them complacent again, but others remembered. The warriors especially, and those who had fought in the war. They understood what the humans had been trying to teach them. Safety is temporary. Danger is permanent. Vigilance is survival. 5 years after the Earth Summit, a new crisis emerged. A natural disaster threatened a densely populated world, but this time evacuation protocols worked perfectly. Backup systems prevented catastrophic failures. Emergency responders moved efficiently. The casualty rate was less than 1%. In the past, it would have been over 30%. When the crisis passed, Kelthar sent a message to Sophie. It was simple. Just 3 words. Thank you for teaching. Sophie shared the message with Kyle. He smiled that human smile, the one that used to make aliens uncomfortable, but now made them feel safer. We did not really teach them anything new, Kyle said. We just reminded them that the universe is dangerous, that you cannot afford to forget that, even in peaceful times. We taught them to sit in the back, Sophie added. We taught them to watch the whole room. And across the galaxy, in council chambers and merchant ships and family homes, beings from 47 different species looked around them with new awareness. They noted exits and checked for threats. They prepared for emergencies they hoped would never come. They sat in the back, watched their surroundings, and stayed ready. They learned to think like humans, and the galaxy was safer for it. Watching for threats of assuming safety was temporary. The humans had not forgotten. The humans could not forget, because 3 million years of evolution would not let them. And now, because they asked one simple question, the rest of the galaxy learned that lesson too. From the back row, Kyle Harrison watched the proceedings with quiet satisfaction. Beside him, Sophie leaned over and whispered, "Think they will stay paranoid? Or will this wear off?" Kyle considered the question. Some will keep it up. The warriors definitely. Species that understand threat assessment. The others will probably drift back to the front eventually. But they will remember, Sophie said. Yes, Kyle agreed. They will remember, and when the next crisis comes, they will know to ask what the humans see from the back. And now you know why, Lisa finished. The delegation stood in the observation room, looking down at the human soldiers who were cleaning their equipment and discussing the exercise. These humans had just demonstrated combat tactics against imaginary enemies. But for them, it was not just training. It was maintaining skills that their biology demanded they keep sharp. Kelthar's crystal body pulsed with a soft blue light, indicating acceptance and understanding. We came to Earth with a simple question. We leave with a complex answer. Thank you for your honesty. You are welcome, Kyle said. What you do with this knowledge is up to you. But remember, the galaxy is peaceful now. That does not mean it will always be peaceful. When the peace ends, and it will end eventually, the prepared will survive. Those words hung in the air like a prophecy. UT still, two were eliminated by threats they failed to anticipate. Now, Amanda said quietly, watch how humans approach the same scenario. 4 human soldiers entered the building. They were smaller than the Zenthari, less physically powerful, but their movement was completely different. They were slow, methodical. Every corner was checked before they moved past it. Every shadow was investigated. Every possible hiding spot was cleared. They moved like people who expected death to wait around every turn. It took them twice as long to clear the building, but when they emerged, all 4 soldiers were alive. Every practice enemy had been found and neutralized. 0 casualties. The observation room was quiet. You see the difference? Amanda asked. We assume everything is dangerous until we prove it is safe. We check every corner because we cannot afford to miss even one threat. It makes us slower, it makes us seem paranoid, but it keeps us alive. HD about safety, danger, and survival. The journey to Earth took 2 weeks through the jump gates. During that time, the delegates talked among themselves. They made guesses about what the answer might be. Some thought it was cultural. Others believed it was religious. A few suspected it might be related to human psychology. None of them guessed the truth. When their ship finally entered Earth's solar system, they saw the blue and green planet hanging in space. It looked beautiful and peaceful. It looked like a paradise world. They had no idea they were looking at one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy.